Well, another week, actually another rainy week, another Monday morning, and also another edition of Johnny W. Bread TV. Welcome to my show, welcome to my world, and welcome to my topic of the day, which is extremism. I like this topic because I don't really think people really think of the ramifications of extremism. They just take it as it's a bad thing. Well, a couple of days ago, there was a guy outside, right out of my house, right in front of my house. There's a vacant house across the street, and he was drinking a large Bud Light. It was one of those 40-ounce beers. It was 10 o'clock in the morning. This was extremism, and yes, it was extremism in a bad form. No doubt about it. Nobody should be out in the morning at 10 a.m. drinking a beer. It's a bad thing. But is every form of extremism a bad thing? We seem to think, particularly when we measure it in political terms, that somehow people who are moderate, people who are in the center, are noble, balanced, they're reasonable. Yet people who have an idea that is on the left or very liberal or militant or socialistic, or on the other hand, people on the right who are like free market capitalists or liberty lovers or tea partiers, whatever you want to call them, these people are also extremists. So you have leftists as extremists, rightists as extremists, and you have the noble centrist. Is this really true, though? I wasn't there during the First Continental Congress. That's when Patrick Henry gave out his rousing speech that ended with the famous line, "Give me liberty or give me death." Now, I can imagine when he was giving that speech leading up to that famous line, there was a couple of guys a couple of rows over, and they're kind of going like this. Hey, look at Patrick again. There he goes. Here he goes on one of his extreme rants. This guy's unbelievable. Always throwing the bombs. Never anything reasonable. He's always going to go off the deep end with his big liberty rants. I'm sure that went on. Well, guess what? Patrick Henry was a mover and a shaker. He believed in liberty to an extreme measure. And he was one of the great leaders to make this nation what it was today. So there's an example of extremism that seemed to do a good thing and had a good end. Also, I recall a while back a guy wrote a book. His name was Donald Miller. He wrote a book called Blue Like Jazz. And he came from a very middle class, culturally conservative family, a Christian family, and he wanted to go off to a college. Much to his parents' chagrin, he chose a college in Seattle, Washington that was very liberal, probably the most liberal college in the country, and very promiscuous in its values and libertine, so to speak. And he went out there to learn about academics and also to meet some new people. And he wanted to share the gospel of Jesus Christ to people who are far different from him. While he was there, he did enjoy his surroundings and just it was like a kid going to a candy store, so to speak, that was so different from his world. And he met a young lady there, and over time he had a nice relationship with her. It wasn't a sexual relationship, it was a friendship. And he tried to tell her about Jesus Christ. He tried to give her the things evangelical Christians do. He tell her about the notion that you're a sinner and you need Jesus. You need a redeemer. You need to be born again, saved. He gave her Bible narratives and stories and all kinds of things to try to tell her about Jesus Christ. And unfortunately, it didn't really do much for him, do much for her while he was there for a while. And he was discouraged that she didn't really know Jesus, but he remained friends with her. I think about a year into knowing her, though, one day she looked at him and it seems something clicked. And she looked at him and she says, Jesus was a revolutionary. And when she said that, he looked at her and he could tell her eyes were wide, and she loved it. She loved the fact that Jesus was a revolutionary. She didn't want Jesus to be a religious man or somebody who was a churchgoer. She wanted somebody who was extreme, I guess you could say. And yes, Jesus really was extreme when we think about it, wasn't he? the most reverent person in the history of mankind, the one we base our calendar upon, Jesus Christ, the man we celebrate Easter this coming Sunday for, his death, resurrection, is a man who was extreme. Look at some of the things he said. Those who love his mother and father more than me are not worthy of me. He said, turn the other cheek. He also said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man comes to the Father but by me. These are not like centrist statements. These are not, I guess you would say reasonable statements. These are revolutionary, different, and extreme statements. And these are by Jesus, and he's the most revered historical figure. Now, what's the point I'm making? The point I'm making is that extremism is really, not only is it a good thing, it's a necessary thing. It's a thing that makes things happen. Even in sports, I could think of Larry Bird as an example. He was a man who was devoted to an extreme level of basketball, even to the detriment maybe of his personal life and other things. But he practiced and he practiced and he practiced. Why did he do that? Because he wanted to be the greatest basketball player. He wanted to help his team win games, and he wanted to compete for championships. This was his cause. This was his goal. Well, in politics, if you want to make the world a better place, can you really take a measured approach, a reasonable approach? Or do you have to be passionate? Do you have to view politics or changing the world as a calling? I think it's apparent. Those who really want to get things done are those people who really will do extreme things. The healthcare debate, I think it was bad. It was a bad passage of a bill, but I give the Democrats credit because they believed in a cause. I'm assuming that I concede to the people who may disagree with me on that point that they might think it was a power grab. But let's say it wasn't a power grab. It was, they really believed that socialized medicine or universal health care, however you want to define it. I don't want to take political sides on this part of my talk. But they did do what was necessary to get it passed. And that takes a lot of balls, so to speak, and it's extreme, but it's extremely important for the person who likes that position to have people who will lead them to do the things they did, because the Democrats got the deal done. Same thing with those who are in the Tea Party, those who are conservative or liberty lovers. They do things to get things done. You can't have namby-pamby, John McCain types change the world. You can't have ordinary people go out and make things happen. You have to have people who are willing to be revolutionaries, extremists, so to speak. These are deep down the people we admire. And to call them extremists in a negative term is really disingenuous, because deep down we like extremists. Extremism works on many fronts. That's why we have cults, and that's how we have groups that also, create revolutions to turn societies around. It goes good and bad, but we like them, and sometimes they can be good.